Welcome to Making Sense of the Madness. We've got a great show lined up for you today. We got Mel K for the full hour. The book is Americans Anonymous, Restoring Power to the People, one citizen at a time. We're going to go well beyond the left-right paradigm. You're not going to want to miss it. Buckle up and get ready to make sense of the madness. And we are now joined by Mel K. The book, Americans Anonymous, is now on the shelf. Mel, thank you so much for joining us. Now, by the time this airs, we should have a president of the United States. Whether that happens or not, or at least the idea that somebody has won a presidential election, that is becoming a little weirder by the day. But aside from that, these agendas keep pushing forward, right? And I know that's one of the reasons that you wrote this book. You know, I had Rudy Giuliani on my show, which was an ultra surreal experience earlier in the week.
Right.
Yeah, very bizarre. And what was even more bizarre is towards the end of the interview, unprompted, Rudy Giuliani starts talking about the United Nations and the Summit of the Future and the pact that they just signed a couple weeks ago that nobody seems to know about. Yeah. I'm like, well, actually, sir, I reported on it.
Me too.
Quite a bit. And it just hit me that, you know, first of all, I talked to Giuliani a little bit behind the scenes. I haven't really told my audience about that, but he really enjoyed the interview. And on air, I asked him exactly what I said I was going to ask him about on Union of the Unwanted. I asked him about the Pakistani Biden 9/11 connection. He said, let's declassify everything 9/11. Wasn't ready for that answer. And then he openly talked about Building 7 and his city corporation council being blown up in it. So I was, again, kind of blown away. And to me, that just kind of speaks how far we've come to kind of like piercing the mainstream. This is the ex-mayor of New York City. This is a big part of Team Trump. The guy hosted SNL, which we can get into is a whole other can of worms. So you've written this book. You're very reliant on people to do their own thing, you know, be their own hero, do their own research, take charge of their own lives. And I hope and I think a lot of that message is penetrating because we have penetrated the mainstream and pop culture on so many levels.
Yeah, I mean, the whole truth is that we, for way too long, and I think there's many different factors, have sat out the choosing of the destiny of this country individually. We kind of put it off to the people who are going to do in our backyards, not just in DC, who's going to be allocating our taxpayer dollars into what, who's involved in what agendas, who's funding from the outside. Like, we do not treat our country like it's ours. We treat it like they treat it, because, you know, I firmly believe that there's a parent company, as I call them, running the United States of America, as if they are own this nation, or they are the stakeholders of America, and we're just lucky to live here. Well, that is because largely we've allowed this to go on. And one thing you brought up, and this goes with Giuliani as well, is the total lack of accountability and transparency, not just starting at 9/11, but all the way back to 1963 and JFK. And if you really look at, and you've done many shows on it, you know, the evolution of the intelligence blob, certainly past the unconstitutional Patriot Act. Right now, we live in a police state. We have basically no privacy. We have a rogue group of people that were spawned, DHS, TSA, DNI, out of the Patriot Act, that obviously do not work for this country or we the people. They are doing whatever they can do to keep the bureaucracy and the agencies and the parent company in business, while really betraying the people on a massive scale. And I think we the people have to start understanding the truth and not hiding from the facts about our history and who's running our country anymore.
So the accountability thing, right? I think that's so important because, you know, you're around me all the time. And anytime somebody starts going on this tirade about how people are going to jail or they're going to Guantanamo, or I laugh at them, unfortunately. I wish that I could do something else. I wish I could take them seriously. These people who say these things are often extremely self-important. they are aggrandized, and they are severely delusional, unfortunately. Now, I wish they were not severely delusional. Giuliani came on the show because he's written a book about the Biden crime family, and the subtext of the book, the subtitle, is the blueprint for their prosecution. And I had to stop him in the very beginning. And I said, Rudy, the truth of the matter is none of these people are going to jail. I go, no one's gone to jail. I go, can you point to a side, I bring up Iran-Contra, and I go, some slaps on the wrist. Those guys, most of them got their sentences commuted or they were pardoned after the fact. I go, the face of it, Oliver North got book deals and radio shows. That's not how you discourage it. And then I brought up Scooter Libby and Enron. And I said, that's the last time anybody in the and he took the hit for, obviously Cheney and the gang. And I go, Trump pardoned him.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, and he tried to talk around it for a minute, like kind of giving you that hope that, well, we can still get his brother and this person and that person. But then we brought up Bill Barr and the laptop, and I go, Rudy, you're speaking to my point, bro. I go, he brings up Bill Barr. I go, exactly. The guy in the administration that's in the Department of Justice has the laptop with all the criminal behavior on it almost a year before it breaks in the news, and no one's investigated. And eventually he kind of just came around to the fact, you're right, there is no accountability. And there doesn't seem to be anybody in an upper tier that's been part of executive administrations, right, within it, that can give me an answer as how do we get it. Because a congressional hearing or investigation or a panel ain't going to do it. A special counsel hasn't been able to do it. I love all those people out there that go and get a state or a citizen's grand jury. Guess what? No one's in jail. Like, I love Larry Klayman, but let's be honest about this. So Mel, given that we don't seem to have that direct avenue, what are some of the things that you do end up suggesting in this book for people to kind of take power of their own lives?
Well, first, I think people have to acknowledge that the swamp is in their backyard, and it's been for decades. It's not just in D.C., it's everywhere, first and foremost. Second of all, we have to start getting to know our neighbors and our community and investing again in that. There's a very little fellowship involved anymore in America in terms of protecting your local jurisdiction from overreach from the federal government. We don't do that. We don't show up. People don't even run for office that would want to because of the gladiator style destruction of human lives the minute that they even dare want to do their civic duty. I think that we also have to look at, like I said, the contracts that our local government is going into, especially no bid contracts. Follow the money. Are these shell companies? All of that. But then also, I think that there has to be actual meetings. Like when I was young and there was robberies in my neighborhood, all the parents got together for neighborhood watch, once a week. They had a schedule. Well, we got to get together for Freedom and Liberty Watch everywhere in this country because of the overreach, not just of the government, but of the surveillance state. And it's coming everywhere that we are. Plus, I believe the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030, and all of that has been implemented by the billionaire class, the parent company, into our communities. Bloomberg, Gates, the UN, all these different people have had their initiatives and I guess like shell company type things and pop-ups all over the place. NGOs, 501c3, 501c4, the whole 501 code has to be rewritten. But these NGOs should not be functioning all over this country as, pseudo governments that nobody knows about. It really is about honestly taking responsibility for your part in allowing this country to become so corrupt and so owned. And again, I also believe that goes way beyond the school board. Like, no, are people looking at the land management? Are they looking at, where the taxes are allocated? Are they looking at, special funding? Like, people have to do that and then get together and discuss it. It's not partisan. It's your money. It's your neighborhood. It's your county. So to me, it's really about redefining our relationship with the government and acting as if they work for us rather than that, we just have to tolerate them till the next election, because that's all BS. And about what you're saying, and this is what's really important to me. There is a group of people that I call the Lawfare crew. Lawfare is one of the divisions of the very corrupt and opaque Brookings Institution. But this new advent of lawfare that has gone after not just all the lawyers with the 65 Project, not just all of the trying to install all of the voting stuff from COVID with Mark Elias and Norm Eisen, but all the way back to, you brought up Enron, that's Weissman. I could bring up Oklahoma City, that's Merrick Garland. I could bring up Bridgegate, that's Chris Wray. What seems to happen is that these people get promoted when they're involved in a major cover-up to the next higher level. Well, if that's how that's working, and it's not the best agent that broke the case and put away the child molesters or the criminals that's getting promoted on merit, then we don't really have a group of people working for us. And the destruction of the legal system in America by these specific people, and I'm talking about all of the people involved in Crossfire Hurricane. I'm talking about not just the Eisen, Weissman, McCord, Wittes lawfare group, but then also everyone that was in that office with Obama and Comey and Brennan and Clapper and all these people. This wasn't about Donald Trump. This was about them maintaining power by any means necessary because of large-scale criminality. We still have no answers about all the money that went to Iran or what really happened in Libya. I mean, we really have to make amends for what's going on in the world. But the first thing you have to do is admit that you have been deceived by your government on a massive scale, and that your money, your treasure, your labor, everything has been squandered on endless wars that have made billionaires out of people like Dick Cheney, out of people like, you know, all of the military-industrial complex. And what is this? That our military-industrial complex is not only funded by hundreds of billions of dollars, but is also traded on Wall Street? Doesn't that give the incentive to continue endless wars? And why are we doing this? $200 billion that we sent for this war in Ukraine that could have been avoided and then ended within weeks. But the Blinken, Biden, and the Trilateral Commission that runs the State Department up there, they wanted nothing to do with ending the war because it's profitable. So right now, you know, BlackRock, Cargill, they basically own all the farmland in Ukraine. The whole thing in Israel, I have been saying for years, they wanted to turn that place in Gaza into a port. And above all else, they're going to build a port there one way or another and figure out how to do it. Well, ta-da, you know, you really do have to look at also, I think it's very important that the American people understand what is the Bank of International Settlements? Why does it have anything to do with our country? What is going on that the private Federal Reserve, 12 governors go to Switzerland to find out about the fiscal future of America? Why these international groups? Because, Jason, what a lot of people don't understand when they think Pact of the Future or the Global Digital Compact or any of this stuff isn't a big deal because we have a constitution. Well, they planned it long ago with Kissinger and Brzezinski and everyone that they would rule from above in regions, i.e. the EU. Well, they want this to be a region of North America with no borders between Canada, America, and Mexico. This has always been the way. So giving the nation states the illusion of still having power and a constitution, when really the nation states are being run by, you know, a conglomerate of a regionalized government that goes around in these conferences. We have the COP29 coming up, you know, and you and I watch these, but if you see what these people are doing, you are absolutely right, because nobody in our government is paying attention to that. They're going full steam ahead. I mean, 100%. The Global Digital Compact that Biden signed is real, and they don't care about the nation state or the Constitution. You know, it's the old Larry Fink. We got to go direct to control the people. That means the banks, the multinational, I call it the international banking cartel, and the multinational corporation parent companies are done with nation states. And as long as this nation state allows that, with walking in with rose-colored glasses on, that we have a constitution and a Bill of Rights, so we're safe, is the problem.
We got to take a break. When we come back, I want to hit on a number of issues that you just talked about. Mainly the idea of a meritocracy, which I do not believe that we have. The fact that we do have the military-industrial complex companies now at record highs on Wall Street in the midst of the turmoil in the Middle East and the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and then this larger scope of quote-unquote globalism through the United Nations and its many other privatized privatized mechanisms. More Making Sense of the Madness with Mel K after this.
Hey folks, it's your buddy John Rich here and co-founder of Old Glory Bank. Let me ask you a question. Why would you trust your banking with people that hate you? Well, you shouldn't. We're building a freedom economy, and now we have a pro-America bank. It's called Old Glory Bank. Check it out at oldglorybank.com and open yourself an account today.
Old Glory Bank is a full-service, FDIC-insured online bank with business and consumer banking and customers in all 50 states. It takes just 8 minutes to open an account at oldglorybank.com.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's showing up more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we are back. The book is Americans Anonymous, Restoring Power to the People, One Citizen at a Time. So, Mel, let's start with the fact that you brought up that these people who have been put into these positions have often been parts of large-scale events that when you just scratch the surface of them, it doesn't seem like the narrative that was put forth is the real narrative.
Right.
Now, I would like to remind people that during 9/11, which is portrayed to this day by the mainstream media and members of government and people in power as the greatest intelligence failure of all time, not a single person was fired. Let me repeat that. Not only was not a single person fired, many of the people that were in power were elevated. And people like Robert Mueller became the director of the FBI just before 9/11 and then are utilized later on in things like the Russiagate Special Counsel. That's how this actually works. You mentioned Merrick Garland and the Oklahoma City bombing, and look where he is today. So you are actually rewarded when you're able to tidy things up in this manner. That cannot be the case in any type of a constitutional republic, quite frankly, where there is supposed to be accountability, where it is a government for and by the people, because this seems to be a government that is for and by some people and will protect certain people and certain agendas. And a lot of that, I think, has been enabled through the privatization of some of these organizations that are multinational, if you will. Obviously, the United Nations is that umbrella under which you get the SDGs, the ESGs, organizations like the WHO, et cetera. And you brought up like the Gates class, if you will.
Right.
One of the very odd things is now I've got to watch somebody like Peter Thiel talk about that class as if it's only leftists, discuss it on Joe Rogan as if it's that way, as naming Gates specifically, when he himself is a multi-billionaire with many of these institutions and is part of that very military-industrial complex you discussed that is in action right now with their organization Palantir, which doesn't just do work for the United States, but is very involved in Five Eyes. And to this day is revolutionizing warfare almost daily with the idea of AI intervention, Lavender in particular, etc. So when you see that part of the spectrum, because I still, you're on the Reawaken America tour, I still hear how Rick Grenell's a great guy. And quite frankly, Rick Grenell's probably going to have a place in this second Trump administration should it come into fruition. So given that aspect of it, how you seem to have some of these people in conservative circles talking about that aspect of it, but then, of course, not their role in the military-industrial complex. And like you said, and yet none of these mechanisms of power, whether they be the institutions like the UN or these philanthropic organizations, they don't go anywhere.
No. But what you're saying, I think, is really important, not just in America, but globally, because people that don't understand that China and Russia are in on Agenda 2030, and that, China is at the top of most of the important so-called agencies at the United Nations, and also is the VIP belle of the ball at the Davos meetings, doesn't fully comprehend what we're dealing with. We are dealing with a class of people that has no allegiance or alliance to any nation, to any flag, to any country, to any people, to any religion. They are straight out of 1984, power for power's sake, a totalitarian technocracy that they create the algorithms, they create the track and trace surveillance. And I think something that's really important too, when you're talking about Palantir, and then I would also bring into that mix the very nefarious, in my mind, Eric Schmidt, formerly at Google, of Google China. I think we have to be very honest about how irresponsible we've been with our country, because frankly, Jason, I believe that the track and trace surveillance, birth to death monitoring, pre-crime, everything that's going on in China is a test case. I really believe that they built, these same people on both sides of the aisle, multinational corporations and big tech and people that go to Davos and Bilderberg, really are responsible for what is happening in China with the surveillance. They've also been testing it in Ukraine and other places. That dragnet, that surveillance net, is for the world. And as you've explained many times, Elon Musk is a part of that. Jeff Bezos is a part of that. But so is Peter Thiel. And so are many, many nations that we're told are our enemies. I mean, the biggest thing people still haven't even gotten an answer for, which I think should be every single American citizen's number one thing, is why was the Department of Defense and Dr. Fauci's NIH working with our supposed worst enemy in the world, the CCP, in Wuhan, in a lab, creating bioweapons to be used on us? Why did that happen? And if that's not treason, then what is treason?
Hold on, through a private organization and company known as EcoHealth. And,
right.
And I had that my first conversation with Dr. Robert Malone probably a little over a month, maybe 2 months ago.
Oh, wow.
And he talked about, even with his time at Merck, when the mRNA platform really wasn't going anywhere and eventually he'll lose his patents. He said, look, when you're in that industry, you're dealing with intelligence all the time. He's like, you don't have a choice. And you think to yourself, wow, that's really interesting. And you mentioned Eric Schmidt, and we've talked about Peter Thiel, and obviously there's supposedly two different sides of the spectrum when it comes to politics, but both steering members in Bilderberg. Right. Bilderberg, to me, is kind of the apex of the Anglo-American Israeli power structure, if you will, really a representation of that Five Eyes alliance in many ways, with some players that they'll bring in here and there. But artificial intelligence has certainly been on the table in that meeting for the last several years. And, I was having a conversation with Bianca Del Garza of Newsweek, De La Garza. And we were starting to talk about, monopolies and, control. And I go, well, let's just stop right now. I go, we've got the AI, or the CAIO program, the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer program in this country. Every single company that is in AI is forced to do this, okay? The person they make, the CAIO, and it took me a little second there, I'm a little slow, everybody, has to have a certain level of clearance under the government. So in other words, has to have intel clearance of at least top secret, has to report back to the government, whether it's software or hardware that they're working on. All of it is audited, every private company, except the intel agencies. The intel agencies very specifically are exempt from sharing any of this information. So we've already created a technopoly inside the system. There is no way that an artificial intelligence through a privatized company can go outside of the realm of government regulation on any level at this point, and no one even knows it's happened. So how do you have real competition and growth in the AI market if the government has gone in and literally said national security, ours, mine. It's my ball, and I'm taking it home.
Yeah, that's the hard part, Jason, because what you're talking about now is something I did a whole show, and I had Kash Patel on, and we discussed a lot of this stuff about just take, for instance, Crossfire Hurricane, something we know happened. Well, what happened after Crossfire Hurricane? Horowitz comes in to do oversight, but doesn't get most of the information. And Mueller was tasked with looking into if Trump's campaign had any relationships with Russia and all of that. But then they bring in Durham through Barr. Remember, Barr's a CIA jumper into CIA, into DOJ, and all these years.
And not just not just a CIA jumper. For those that don't understand, the man was in the Central Intelligence Agency before he passed the bar exam and became a lawyer. He then becomes a lawyer. And not only is he in the agency, he becomes the youngest attorney general under Mr. CIA himself, George Big Daddy H.W. Bush. Okay? So he's around during the Iran-Contra days. Now, post that, he worked hand in hand with Robert Mueller during the Noriega scandal, okay, to mull that over. So when we're talking about a CIA jumper and someone in the Justice Department, this is spook central from the time the guy was basically a teenager or in his early 20s. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then the worst part is that after we realized, you and I knew, but after most people realized what had happened with Crossfire Hurricane, then Barr pulls in Durham to investigate, and this is after Mueller, when he testified, said that he didn't look inside the government at all. Then he brings what's his name, Durham in. Durham says he had no purview inside the government either. So nobody inside the government, and I'm talking about DOJ with Weissman and the Mueller team, but also the FBI, Strzok, Page, all them, they were never investigated. Also, they indicted Julian Assange a year before the Durham report came out, the Mueller report came out, but didn't pull the plug and reveal the indictment of Assange until that came out. The entire investigation of Crossfire Hurricane through Durham was an operation to cover up the crimes of the insiders. And none of them were investigated at all. And then going forward, Strzok and Page sue the FBI and get millions of dollars. Andrew McCabe gets a deal with MSNBC. Clapper, Brennan, these people that lied to the whole world over and over get deals with CNN and MSNBC. Nobody within the government has been held accountable. And this goes all the way back to me. If we allowed it with the Warren Commission, okay, and everyone just accept the Warren report, when the people on the Warren Commission were likely involved in the murder, and then put a president in, Ford, and started a war basically overnight that never ended, as far as I can see to this day. There always needs to be endless wars, and no one's been held accountable. I mean, you even bring up Mueller. I had a friend whose father happened to be murdered by Samuel Gravano. Guess who was in that case? Robert Mueller. These gigantic cases. That was the biggest mob case. And Mueller, who was running Enron? Andrew Weissman. Okay. So you have to look at all of this and say, what have we allowed to happen to this country? Because it is us. And then the other big problem is the opaque money going into think tanks such as RAND and Atlantic Council and all these military industrial complex think tanks. You can't see the money. We have lobbyists in Washington, D.C. from Ukraine, from China, from Saudi Arabia, from everywhere. K Street is a criminal enterprise that is paying off politicians to control them. Well, within weeks, I had Tulsi Gabbard on, and she said, within weeks of being in DC, you're like inundated, and people are telling you, take the money, take the lobbyists. Like, if you don't do that, you're not participating properly. So we haven't even had people get past many primaries. Neither the RNC nor the DNC want anyone to open the books, want anyone to change the status quo. McConnell hasn't even given money to Ted Cruz, let alone Carrie Lake or any of these people, because they don't want them. They don't want it to change. And why do people stay in office till they're 86? Probably because they don't want crimes revealed that they've been involved in. But again, now they're talking about getting rid of the Electoral College openly. And the truth is, then only California and New York, the two destroyed states that should be the best states in the country and are the worst, would be running America.
And let me say they wouldn't even necessarily be running America, because we really don't know that they've had free and fair elections for a long time. Yeah. Remember, Donnie T just knocked it out of the park in the middle of New York City. And again, the mainstream media not only tried to marginalize it, they tried to relate it to Hitler and the Nazis in the 30s. I mean, that's really where we are. We got to take a break.
Were the working socialists.
Yeah, out of control. So we got to take a break. When we come back, I kind of want to hit on this mafia aspect. I often talk about how the real mafia, they're in three-piece custom suits. They just don't have the Italian accents and the Hollywood bravado that you're used to. No, they're in the halls of government. More Making Sense of the Madness after this.
My name is General Mike Flynn, and I want everyone to know that I stand fully behind Beverly Hills Precious Metals and its owner, Andrew Sorcini. We are facing one of the greatest periods of financial uncertainty in both American and world history, and so now is the time to organize your finances. With the advent of the BRICS pay system, we need to now seriously consider how we can take better care of ourselves and our families and start some serious decision making when it comes to our wealth. You can also ask about their newest 2-ounce coin of yours truly. It's an absolutely great gift, and I am deeply honored to be part of history, as well as helping people protect their finances, their wealth, and their investments. So visit gold.generalflynn.com. Tell them the General sent you. Thank you so very much. God bless you, and God bless America.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to thepatriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to thepatriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
You know, Mel, last night I was up late because I sleep horribly, and I was on the X, and I saw Michael Franchese. Now, for those that don't know, Michael Franchese is one of the few surviving 80s kind of heads of crime families. He was very, very high up in these crime families that were working, the Gotti, the Gambinos, all those in that era. And look, I think the guy is very lucky to be alive. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually a bullet went into his head. But at the same time, he did this 9-minute video breaking down the real mob structure. And a lot of it had to do with Soros and the Open Society and, yes, the Democratic Party, but then also these globalist organizations and the media and how they're all intermarried, they're all intermingled. For instance, everybody knows who Jen Psaki is at this point because she was the press secretary and she's got a show on MSNBC. Does anybody know about her sister? or the rest of her family that are completely involved in the World Economic Forum and all of these organizations and trying to bring about globalism, etc., through these kind of mandates, treaties, recommendations that are all on the peripheral. So in that sense, I do think more and more people are awakening to the fact that the government is the mafia. How do you rein that in? Is it even possible to rein it in? And again, we don't know what's going to happen on election week, I guess.
Right.
We don't know what
Election
happens
month.
even if who gets sworn in. But I think that you and I also realize that no matter what happens, even the best case scenario, there seems to be a limitation on what can really get done as opposed to the rhetoric. Will we get the JFK files? Maybe. Will we get the 9/11 files? I doubt it. Are we really going to rein in the Central Intelligence Agency, the FBI, and the DOJ? Not holding my breath, Mel.
Yeah, but I mean, we really do have to, and I agree with you. If there was enough pressure, though, by the public, I really do believe this in like I'm talking about, in having groups that are overseeing liberty and freedom and privacy in the counties and are pushing on the states. My hope is right now in the states, and for the states to balance their budgets and not take anything from the federal government. The federal government is a crime syndicate and has been for decades. And what you're talking about, too, is what I'm talking about. They're basically, when you're a made man in the government, you get promoted. Well, a made man in the mafia killed somebody. It's not that different. And the other side of this mafia is also the cartels, especially the Sinaloa cartel and the cartels that were all in bed with not just McCain and Bush and Biden, but many of our people. And you go down and you look at, Kamala Harris went early on to look at the root causes of immigration from Guatemala and all that. Well, do you know that we gave them hundreds of millions of dollars through the criminal enterprise I call USAID and National Endowment for Democracy? We have literal big organizations, and I think USAID not only needs to be shut down, but audited for the last 20 years and start there. I feel like USAID is the one place, obviously run by Samantha Power. Her husband, Cass Sonstein, the hero of Lawfare, is writing the border laws behind Mayorkas. Nobody even knows that. The entire Obama regime, if you saw him on stage yesterday, pandering to everyone as if. Listen, the truth is we do have to do something about the CIA because of the black ops all over the world. We have to do something about the 800 military bases that we don't know what they're doing. We don't know where their budgets go. And frankly, like I said, I think these trilateral commissions or anyone that's a member or involved with the World Economic Forum should be banned from holding office in America. But all these things won't happen unless you in your own backyard start organizing to put pressure on your state. Because these states can do a lot of things that they're not doing, let alone sheriffs can do a lot of things that they're not doing. But without the pressure from the people and the fear, it goes back to, I think it's Madison that said, when the people fear the government, it's tyranny. When the government fears the people, it's liberty. Well, we have to start getting back into a position where it's not about violence or any of that. It's truly about you will lose your job. And we will out you. And the other thing, Jason, that we have to remember, and I know you know this, is that when you bring up Soros or any of that, the accumulation of free local papers all over this country by Acronym and the Good News Initiative and all of this is deceiving people that don't even think about this. People that are getting their free paper when they go to the car wash or go to the grocery store on their way out. I'll take the free paper and see what is going on in the music of my neighborhood or what restaurants are good. In there, those are owned by Lauren Powell Jobs and Acronym and Open Society. They're bogus. So again, we have to revisit very quickly the Smith Modernization Act and reverse that. And these people that are putting out propaganda to deceive the public and not give them real information to prepare them for their own futures need to be held accountable. So we have many layers to do. And like I say, Trump is sand in the gears. But if people aren't voting for themselves and their future and their family and their country, in this election, then they don't know the danger we're in, because this is not for Trump to fix. It is for the people of the United States to gather together like-minded folks and fix it. And I will tell you, just because you and I are on the Reawaken tour, and then I also go to other events, you go to other events, there are plenty of people that are done with this left-right paradigm. They just want liberty and freedom and the government to get out of monitoring our behavior and checking our bank accounts and all of this. And I mean, I do, like Kash Patel says, we have a map called the Constitution, but if the Constitution isn't put into action and people aren't brave enough to take care of these people, which is why I say I don't really care that much who the vice president is. I really do care who the attorney general is this time. And for me, I would like to see the attorney general go after the people at the top that are responsible, that have deceived this public. But like you said, I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's absolutely not going to happen unless the American people get real about our history, what we have been lied to about, what we have participated in with our money and our children all around the world, death of millions of people in these wars that always end up transferring money to the same people that then take more power and more land and more. And we have a very serious situation coming up. Not only did Biden and Harris sign on to the Pact of the Future, they signed on to the 30 by 30 agenda. They signed, and this is going to be also integrated with the AI, with the climate trace. They have the COP29 conference coming up, I believe, in Azerbaijan, of all places. I mean, who are they kidding? This is all fraudulent. And again, it's our taxpayer money that paid for Governor Kemp to go to Davos. It's our taxpayer money that paid for AOC to go to the or our climate czars, two of the worst criminals ever in our government, Kerry and Podesta, to go to these conferences. That again is our money also. The whole 501 thing has to be totally gutted. I mean, it's a joke. It's ridiculous. These billionaires, you know, Open Society, Gates Foundation, Bezos, they don't pay any taxes. But you know who else doesn't pay taxes? Any United Nations organization, the United Nations in New York, any Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FEMA, no taxes, none. So it's just so stupid how we've allowed, like you said, I agree with Francesi. The mafia is running this country, and they're running it for their own gain. And again, like you said, the Sinaloa cartel and all the cartels and everything, they have skyscrapers in Chicago and wear $3,000 suits. They're not shooting each other on a ranch in Mexico. You know, I mean, this is not what we're dealing with. There is a human trafficking, child sex trafficking ring in the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City. People have shown evidence and all that. You know who can't go in there? The NYPD. Why? So this is much bigger. But if the people of the United States do not get up and realize we have been deceived, this is our fault for allowing it, because Jason, whole nother topic, but going into big pharma, not just big pharma medicating kids as young as possible, but the prison industrial complex is a big pharma cash cow. You know, even if we take off the ads off TV and get some of the levers of big pharma that control the media through advertising and then control the news that is put out through that money, we still have a whole nother section of people and things that are going on. So for me, I want people to find what they're passionate about, be it the human trafficking, sex trafficking, gun trafficking, organ harvesting trafficking, that is fully funded by our government all over the country and the world. But, you know, if that's not your thing, then figure out what your thing is and get involved now. But you have to get involved. It's going to be local pressure on local politicians. And again, we have to also really push back on not allowing money to run. I mean, billions and billions of dollars put into a race that people shouldn't be so manipulated that it costs billions of dollars to vote for somebody. It is completely insane. And again, a lot of this money is being laundered back to people that pretend to be serving our interests when they're not. And look, my whole feeling is that there definitely needs to be a cleaning house in the intelligence agencies. And I, for one, would love to see the Patriot Act revisited by the people, because I think that if we could just address what has happened since the Patriot Act and maybe deal with that, then we could start to peel back layers. But it's got to start somewhere, and it's got to start all the way at the top, in my opinion.
Well, I always argue that even to this day, our basic foreign and domestic policy is still based on the narrative we were sold via 9/11, whether
Right.
that is the Patriot Act, DHS, the Military Commissions Act, the National Defense Authorization Act. You said the Smith-Mund Act, all these different things. Cass Sunstein and the propaganda and infiltration of these groups all comes out of 9/11. And just to finish up on the mafia point, if you're like the worst of the worst hitman, somebody like Sammy the Bull, who you were talking about earlier, maybe you got 100 bodies, which is horrendous, under your belt. I got news for you. These politicians, these military guys, they make decisions where 1,000 people are wiped out like that. Who are the real killers? We got to take one final break. When we come back, I want to talk about the reality of the situation, because although Mel and I run in circles like the Reawaken America tour, we also do shows like the Union of the Unwanted that is so separated from the left or right. They really don't think there is a difference between a Kamala Harris administration or a Donnie T administration. We're going to explore that next. Final segment of the show after this.
Hi, fellow patriots. How are you today? No, really, how are you? If you're looking for a way to energize, depuff, revitalize your skin, and maybe soothe some sore muscles, look no further than the Patriot TV store and the Nu Skin Renew Spa IO system. This is not your basic body massaging system. Nuh-uh. This has adaptive microcurrent technology that goes through these wonderful nodes on the bottom to really get in there. When you use it, you feel it just gently tickling in there and massaging everything. It's marvelous. And not only do you get the device, you also get a free tube of the special conductive gel to go with it. So there you are. You can depuff, you can revitalize, energize, and not only that, contour, firm, and tone. And we all want that. So go to the Patriot TV store now and get yours today from Nu Skin, the Renew Spa IO system. Attention business owners, are you ready to advertise to millions of loyal patriots ready to buy your products or services? Here is your golden chance to advertise with Jason Bermas and connect with his massive audience on Patriot TV and his incredibly loyal social media followers. As an advertiser on Making Sense of the Madness, you also reach his followers on the top social media sites. As Jason dives into complex current events and conspiracies, offering investigative analysis and thought-provoking discussions to uncover the deeper truths behind the headlines. When you advertise with Jason on Making Sense of the Madness, you're aligning your brand with integrity, loyalty, and a dedication to truth. Jason's audience is passionate, conservative, and committed to the values your business stands for. When given the choice, Jason's followers will buy your products or services over other woke companies. Don't miss this opportunity to elevate your brand with the power of Patriot TV. Reach out to us today at advertise@patriot.tv.
The book is Americans Anonymous: Restoring Power to the People, One Citizen at a Time. Now, Mel, we were doing a show earlier in the week. I actually posted the first hour on my own platforms, what I attended. And there are those that just don't think it matters at all. And I would disagree with that. Sometimes when you're talking about maybe Bush running against his second cousin on one side, ninth cousin on the other, Kerry, yeah, maybe there's not a difference there. But when you've got a zombie administration for 4 years, and the person running not getting a single vote from a single American citizen, being installed as the candidate for the party, outwardly saying they wouldn't change anything in the last 4 years, you know where this is all going. Now, am I buying into some hopium via Donnie T? Maybe. But it's just the party of common sense at this point. They're the ones talking about censorship. You just talked about Big Pharma. RFK Jr., imperfect, but please put him in charge of the CDC, the FDA, the NIH, what can be in our food, our water, and our skies. That's actually a great thing. That's a step in the right direction. And I don't think that we're necessarily hopeless or helpless. I have seen individuals on the inner circles that clearly have their blind spots and clearly, in my opinion, do want to do better for the people, want part of that greater good. Doesn't mean they're perfect. None of us are. So in that sense, where do you think we are? Because I do think, unfortunately, whether or not that guy gets in there are certain things like Israel's going to do what Israel wants to do. Maybe Donald Trump can get some kind of a timeline. He can say, hey, we're going to do this. This is as far as it's going to go. And maybe it stops there. But at the end of the day, there's no timeline right now under the Biden administration. And
there's no president right now. And everyone's kind of okay with that, which is terrifying and scary. And like you said, Kamala got no votes. But even looking back on our history, it appears that she might never have even been first chair in court ever. And that even as AD or Attorney General of California, that everything that we've seen is a construct similar to Obama. So, there is a level of that it's all a smoke and mirrors. And like I said, I really feel like our country is being run by a parent company that's above our government. And I think Larry Fink and his friends are more powerful than the president or other people. But there are a lot of agencies that I do believe can be proven in court to be unconstitutional. I am. What does give me hope is the Chevron case being overturned and some of the other things, sending things back to states, a win against EPA. I really think that the bureaucracy, we have a dictatorship by bureaucracy of agencies that can be dismantled. I don't think it can happen overnight, but there has to be effort put into it to put out to the people that these regulatory agencies are basically, like you said, a part of the mafia, as far as I can see, who they pick and choose to go after, be it the SEC, the FEC, whoever it is. Like, who are they? And I just feel like Donald Trump is sand in the gears to the global movement. I do know, I get it. I go at it on Union of the Unwanted because they know that I'm a Trump supporter. But I will tell you right now, it is a fact that he pulled us out of UNESCO. He pulled us out of NAFTA. He pulled us out of the Paris Climate Agreement. He pulled us out of a lot of stuff that was building Agenda 2030. And frankly, I think the war right now is on the billionaire level because it's going to cost Larry Fink and all the architects of Agenda 2030 trillions of dollars if Donald Trump gets back in and starts to dismantle it again and take the UN as well, because I believe that it has, after you yelling about it for a decade and me yelling about it for 5 years, I do think the highest levels of power, like Rudy and other people, now do look at it and say, even Patrick Byrne the other day said to me, like 4 years ago, he wouldn't have even imagined that he would be saying that there's a globalist billionaire oligarchy that's running the world, like they control everything as stakeholders. But these people are so arrogant and they put their plans out there. But I don't want to live in the world that they're creating with Agenda 2030. I don't want to be tracked, traced, or surveilled, and I don't think anyone should have to. I think in the United States, we agreed to a license, a birth certificate, and a social security card. Other than that, the government's not entitled to any of my data. But as long as people are lining up to get their retinas scanned at the airport and not even questioning it and giving their hands to Amazon at the Whole Foods, not realizing Amazon is the second largest Department of Defense contractor. Like, we are walking blindly, mainly because the media and the politicians have turned into a reality show to deceive us. But we are walking blindly into full track and trace surveillance that is the end game. And that is the American citizens doing that. If the American citizens weren't doing that, it wouldn't be likely that it could happen. And like I keep saying, Donald Trump's whole thing, they're not after me, they're after you, I'm in the way. No. They're not after America. They're after the world, and America's in the way. And America's not doing such a good job at standing in the way. And that's where the small things that give you power, like me and Rob saying, we're not doing our retina scan for you. I've seen Minority Report. It came out in 2012. I'm very clear on what this is. I'm very clear on putting my hand on the door to open a unmanned Amazon to go in Manhattan is them taking my handprint and my fingerprints. Like, if you don't get that, having 70 apps on your phone that you don't even know what they are. Do you know where your data is going? Do you know where your children's data is going that they have on records on every school district in America? So it's just the American people need to wake up and stand up and understand, if you're not going to live the Bill of Rights and the Constitution in your everyday life and preserve this country and liberty and freedom and privacy, then maybe you don't deserve it. And that's the sad part. It's like Ben Franklin saying you have constitutional republic if you can keep it. Well, are we doing everything we can to keep it? And I think the answer is no. And whether it's Donald Trump coming in as a CEO to reorganize a corporation, basically, and RFK Jr. coming in to look at the FDA, CDC, and the corruption in there and what's in our food and our air and everything, or Nicole Shanahan, who's come out of nowhere, and I love what she has to say. You just got to remember that there are people around Trump right now that I believe are far better for this country than anything we've had since the murder of JFK, because I think that they're all in on it. And I think that these people are truly individuals. They might all have their masters, but right now, if you look at the future, I do believe that it's very important that we have people in there that understand the globalist model is really what we're fighting against at the end of the day. And if we don't want that, then we need champions who are going to fight against it. And we have a few right now. And you're never going to vote your way out of technocratic communism or inclusive capitalism, i.e. communism, but by technology. So we're not going to vote our way out. Nobody's ever had a chance on planet Earth to vote against communism and technocracy. And we do. And I'm sorry if you like some of the people on the left. I don't think most of them really know what they're voting for. They're voting against Trump, thinking that, late-term abortion isn't a business. It's a business. After 6 months, it's a straight-up disgusting international billion-dollar business. And they're standing out there, women's rights. No, it's not about women's rights. It's about a billion-dollar trafficking business of body parts and all this stuff. But you can't tell them that. And the craziest part to me right now is we could escalate to World War III, especially if the warmongers maintain power. And the people on the left haven't even discussed it at all.
I mean, again, they don't seem to be, quote unquote, voting for Kamala Harris. Like you said, they're still voting against Donald Trump. And that is just a very weird and odd thing to me, that a cult of personality can hit those two different levels. One level where people literally think he's the second coming of Christ and is going to save the world, and the other level that he is literally an amalgamation of Hitler, Satan, and Baphomet, and here to destroy everything. Mel, we got about a minute left in the broadcast. What would you like to leave the audience with, and where can they get this great book, Americans Anonymous, Restoring Power to the People, One Citizen at a Time?
Well, thank you so much. You can get Americans Anonymous, Restoring Power to the People, One Citizen at a Time. There's a lot of history and other things in there you might not know and can really put together the dots. Plus, I have the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence in whole in the appendix of that book. So that's also good for everyone out there that needs to refresh exactly what our country is and stands for. So you can get that anywhere at themelkshow.com or wherever books are sold. Amazon, if you do go there, it does help me if you put a thing, because we're fighting the algorithms. So that's that. And we have a show every single night on Rumble. We're not going to stop no matter what happens with the election. We are here for liberty, privacy, truth, and justice, and we're going to keep fighting for that. So themelkshow.com every night, wherever free speech is allowed, especially Rumble, and then also themelkshow.com resource page is free, and a lot of playbooks are there, so you can read their own words and be able to articulate in any argument what are the facts and truth, because that's the most important thing, is being able to stand up, speak up, and show up, but always have the truth and facts on your side. Then everyone can do what they can do where they are and make a difference in their backyard.
Then you can use a little thing called discernment. Mel K, thank you so much. You know the drill to this guy. It is not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. I absolutely love you guys, and we'll see you on the flip side.